first heard you and heard about the AND campaign, there were all sorts of things that I had both questions about and that it resonated with. But can we just talk a little bit about just how people who have never heard this before, the AND campaign, what is that?
Yeah, so the AND campaign is really a response to the idea that, me and the other co-founders thought that when Christians got into politics, they felt like they had to go all the way to the right or all the way to the left. Yeah. And one side supposedly represents love, the other side supposedly represents truth or, moral order. And the way we were looking at it was, we can't really choose sides in that way. Like, you can be in a party, but at the end of the day, the Bible is about love and truth. And so if you go all the way to the left, there's some truthful things or some Christian convictions they're not going to let you take all the way over there. And sometimes on the, the far right, it's less compassionate than it should be. So in our heads, it's like our witness, our public witness should be what the gospel is, which is love and truth. And if you look at Ephesians 4:15, it says that when Paul's talking to the church of Ephesus, he's saying that you should be able to speak the truth in love. Yeah. And so we think when we go out in our public witness, it should be love and truth. So we said, we're not going to go along with this false dichotomy, this false choice between justice and righteousness or justice and moral order. It's and. Yeah. So when we go out, the Christian witness should be about justice and moral order, love and truth, compassion and conviction, not one or the other.
And that seems so right and so obvious. And yet it is, you guys are in difficult spaces, and we all live, is it okay to say that we live in the tension of this? And so since words matter, let's just put some other words out there that people will either or with. On the one side, social justice. You said justice, but then when we put social justice with it, that's almost a weaponized term now for some.
True.
And then on the other side, if you start to talk about what maybe used to be, you talk about family values, but any kind of values-based approach, is that the same? Are we talking about the same dichotomy there?
No, absolutely. So what we say is, look, you have to have a biblical understanding of all this. So where the AND campaign starts is with biblical doctrine.
I love that.
What does the Bible say about it? And so we do think the Bible talks about social justice, which to us is just society setting a certain standard for how we treat people based on human dignity.
Clearly.
That doesn't mean that we accept everything within the world that's seen as social justice, right? We need to have our own definition, but we shouldn't reject it just because the world has kind of soiled it or whatever. We should reclaim it and say, this is what we mean and this is what we're going to do about it.
That's what I love, is this idea that these are not new terms, these are not new ideas. What you're doing is you're reclaiming what is a thoroughly biblical concept of what does it mean to treat the other, and what does it mean specifically in some ways to treat, Jesus would call them the least of these. The Old Testament prophets would call out words like refugees.
Oh yeah.
And so all of that is there. And then when you talk about the values-based or the love side of this thing, what is it that has been lost on that side? Because here we are admitting that justice, social justice, sometimes is a scary term for some Christians, right?
Yeah.
How about on the other side of this equation, when you start talking about values and, like I said, it used to be family values, Christian values. Yeah. I don't even know what the right buzz term is now. But I'm guessing there's an inherent, there's something about that side of the equation that worries people too. Talk about that.
Yeah, so when you talk about biblical values, or we say moral order sometimes.
Sure, right.
Sometimes it's just overly harsh. And I think where Christians have gone wrong in the past is maybe they had the right doctrine, but maybe they weren't applying it with enough compassion, right? We all understand that we're in the situations we're in, if they're good situations, only because of the grace of God.
Amen.
And so I can disagree with someone because I don't think love is necessarily affirmation. But I can disagree with someone, but do I do it in a loving way? Am I condemning them, or am I really trying to love them and show them, look, I'm no better than you. By God's grace, which is open to all, we can both do better, and God has something better for you. Not that I'm standing on some type of moral high ground. And I think sometimes when we talked about family values and we talked about biblical values, it didn't have that compassion. And people are not going to listen to you if they don't think you love them. And so sometimes that's just not the first conversation you have. Let the people know you love them, and it's not a strategy. It's because you really do, and that you want them to understand the love of God is so great that you don't have to live the life that you're living. And that you need their help to do better as well, and that you have your own issues. I don't think we were always clear about that. And so sometimes it could come off almost as hypocrisy or just harshness. And that's not what the gospel is about either. And so we have to make sure that we're not coming off overly harsh without running away from doctrine either.
So it almost sounds like a little bit of what you're saying. And this, of course, this changes in every situation, but it's how we say what we say. It's a tone of what we say. We might actually be, our doctrine might be airtight, but the way it's coming out of our mouths is not dripping with grace. It's full of a kind of self-righteousness sometimes.
Yeah, it's tone and posture, right? So I have to say it the right way, but is my posture in someone that's loving you, someone that's not looking down on you and pointing my finger at you, but somebody saying, brother, I've been there, or I understand what you're going through, or I want to care for you and serve you. How can I serve you? Because God has something greater than what the world is offering you and what the world is telling you is okay.
Okay, but when you say that, the end game of that conversation is not winning an argument. When you say, I'm coming into this humbly going, let me tell you my stuff. Let me tell you how badly I need God's grace. Let me tell you the mistakes I've made. You're already leveling the playing field, but that you don't win, quote, arguments that way.
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's not about winning the argument. It's about winning your brother or sister and letting them know that you care and God cares about them. And sometimes we miss that too much. I mean, sometimes, we could live a certain lifestyle and, 5 years ago we changed, and then now we're just so hardcore that we want to, kind of come down on people just a little too hard or harder than we should. And so we just all have to remember that grace, that we're recipients of grace. The person you're talking to is a recipient of grace. We want to work through this together, and I'm here to serve you and to show you what God's promises are for you.